I'll be brief as well, so that you have. I wasn't planning on making very many remarks at all. But I thought that I should respond to a few of the things and a little bit of the rhetoric that has been used tonight. At the commission, the rhetoric is oftentimes easy, but the decision making is much harder. Many of the complaints and concerns that you all have, or that the other commissioners have, about some of the media ownership rules, or really go back to what Congress did when they passed the law in 1996 that changed those media ownership rules. The concerns you have about radio consolidation that Jonathan Adelstein mentioned are a result of a congressional change, a law that was passed that said that the ownership caps should end up being eliminated. And they're not anything that the commission has the authority to end up changing. Because when Congress passes a law and tells it to do something, we actually implement that. And if Congress passes a different law, we'll also implement that. As a part of that law, we're also required to conduct a media ownership proceeding and determine whether or not the laws are still necessary, and to take into account how the media landscape has changed and how there are new voices out there for people to get opportunities to get news and information. And I think that we, just as we have a responsibility to try to listen to you, we do have a responsibility to end up implementing what Congress tells us to do. And if Congress tells us to do something different, we'll do that as well. In the meantime, though, we do have an obligation to complete the proceeding that we have in front of us. We have had a series of hearings throughout the country where we've heard from lots of folks just like you who are concerned about the media landscape today. And we've done a significant number of studies to try to determine what we should do going forward. And I think that some of the rhetoric that talks about whether we should be allowing more TV stations to be owned by individuals, or radios to be owned by individuals is not as reflective of where some of the commissioners know that we're end up going. I think that the most significant rule that's currently being debated is one that was put in place back in the 1970s. It says a newspaper is not allowed to own a single broadcast station in any market in the country. And what that means is that the current rule says it doesn't matter if you're talking about New York City, the largest market in the country, or the smallest. The newspapers aren't able to own not even a single radio station. Despite the fact that under the current rules, without us making any changes whatsoever, in those same markets, one person can own 2 TV stations, numerous radio stations, and the cable system. No, and what I'm saying to you is if you don't like those rules, which is fine. No, a lot of those were actually put in the law that was passed, and it's not actually up to us just to fix it. And so we're not able to end up doing it. And what we are faced with is trying to say, how do we make it fair for all the people that are involved? Let me say, before I get back to the issue on newspaper broadcast cross-ownership, let me just say, you're asking why the rush and why no notice? And so let me respond. Throughout this process, I've been as transparent as I could be, an opportunity to end up, and it's not just it includes some of the commissioners who spoke earlier who understand how to play four corners defense. I actually proposed in September to all the commissioners, and both Democratic commissioners know this, a one-page public notice that announced the date of the media ownership hearing we would have on localism in Washington in October. It had the date that we would go forward and have this media ownership hearing in Seattle. It had the date that I would actually put out the rules, and it had the date of the open meeting that we would vote on it. And I put it out in September, and the reason it didn't come out is because the two Democratic commissioners wouldn't vote it. And no, I'm not done. I'm not quite done. And I'll sit down in a second, and then you will have your chance tonight. But it's not just when you talk about a process, it's not just any one person's fault for why that notice wasn't provided. It was all the commissioners had that opportunity to make sure that everyone had the notice. No, that is the truth. And on the newspaper broadcast cross ownership rule, Frank Bledthen has been the most vocal proponent in the country of saying that that the current rule should stay in place. The newspapers shouldn't be able to own anything else. I think you have to put that in the context of almost every other newspaper publisher in the country is having cutbacks in their newsrooms and are saying that theirs are going to continue unless they're able to diversify some of their media properties and split the costs out over other opportunities. We'll listen closely, certainly, to Frank Bledthen, but we will listen to everyone who comes forward and whatever evidence they end up providing. And we'll also listen to you. And I told you I would be brief and let you all have the opportunity to talk to us tonight. And so we'll start with the public comments just as soon as we finish with the first panel.